And welcome back to the WTF Sunderland podcast as we welcome a special guest to the show for our summer episodes. A fully fledged Northern Ireland international, he appeared in 3 Wembley finals for Sunderland, playing over 100 games for the lads in all competitions. Welcome to the show, Tom Flanagan. Tom, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Thank you for having me.
It's actually really hard to say Tom rather than Flanno. It's like
Yeah.
I've never met you before, but in my head you're Flanno, mate. Look, before we talk about your time at Sunderland, I spoke to you a little bit off air about watching that final. You spent 3.5 years with us. I still want to bask in that glory of last Saturday. So, did you watch the game?
Yeah, I did. I did watch it. Obviously, still know quite a few of the boys, and after the life that I had up there and things like that, kind of it's a strong connection for me and things like that. And a club I want to see do well, really. So look, I'm honest enough, and that I had my bitter moments. Um, which I'm sure we'll get on to. But no, it's great to see the club doing well. Um, I don't think it's necessarily down to what a lot of people believe, but the club is where it belongs, and I think that's really down to the players. And one thing I sensed from like the social media stuff afterwards and things like that, interviews and pictures and things like that, seemed like they had a real good unity in the dressing room, and that looked really good. And they've been together. There hasn't been a huge turnover of players over the last 2 years because it's kind of the culmination of 2 years' work, I'd say. So yeah, pretty good, and I was pleased. I actually kind of was sat with my dad, and I said, "This goes one or two ways. They'll win it in the last minute, or they'll get battered." That's genuinely what I believed. I watched the Sheffield United game, and they were just so good. And I watched I didn't watch the first Coventry game. I watched the second Coventry game, and I was just a bit like. And obviously, you read into it like with how the team kind of had a bit of a sticky end to the season, which is it's difficult to turn around, and like knowing as a player and at that level it can get tough. But yeah, no, I was really pleased when they done it, and I think it's made even better by the lad scoring the goal, just being like a local boy and things like that. It just goes to show it's you don't need all the foreign players when you've got someone like that who's born and raised around the corner. I don't know the lad at all, but I mean that's unbelievable. I think one of the standout ones for me is I look at Dan Neil now captaining the team, and I might have played in his debut game. I'm pretty sure I probably would have, to be honest. And just go from strength to strength, and that must be unbelievable for him and his family for sure, because his family were a huge supporter of him at all the games when I was there in the players' lounge, used to say hello and things like that. So yeah, I think having some real local lads and it not be completely cannibalized, I think is really, really, really good for the club, and it keeps that connection. Um, me personally, I'm a Chelsea fan, and I think as you see with the press and things like that, there's not really much of a connection anymore between the players and the fans, and they've been successful. But as a football fan, I would class myself more as a football fan these days than I previously have been. Kind of with where my career is at the minute and things like that. Like my kids are crazy into football, so I do feel like a fully fledged football fan again. Been to a lot of games this season when I've been able to, and yeah, it sounds it's kind of sacrilege to say it, but it's not all about winning. It's a connection from the fans with the players, and I think if you can match that connection with winning the biggest game in the world, I think it's incredible for all the supporters, and as well, like Sunderland fans just love London, don't they? And it's not been kind to them that much, but they just love it. And fair play. I'm sure again we'll get into it, but I remember walking out of the train at St Pancras or King's Cross, and like they were all at the end of the platform, and I was just like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And then we got on the bus, and it was just like everywhere we went, there were Sunderland fans and that, and it was just like so surreal and yeah, brilliant. And I don't know, you just don't see too many other clubs do it, really.
No, not at all, mate. You touched there about being a Chelsea fan, but I remember really specifically when you first joined, in your interview, I kind of researched what you'd done previously with Burton, and then in your interview you said, "Oh, like a few of my mates are Sunderland fans," and there was this
Yeah.
kind of rumor going around that you'd been to Sunderland games before. What was the background?
Yeah, I went to. I had been to quite a few Sunderland games, so it's funny actually. Really close friend. Well, so there was two boys I went to primary school with. One is a lad called Jack, and he's got two other brothers, and they were at the game at the weekend. They used to come to loads of games, and all throughout school they were mad Sunderland fans. Their family were from up there. And then I'm not so close with them anymore, but like when Sunderland play, they'll text me and I'll try and help them out with tickets if they can't get them. And like we'll just back and forth purely about Sunderland now, you know. And then another one of my friends who I've got children the same age as him now. Our kids are friends, so like real close connection. He was at the game the weekend, and he's a mad Sunderland fan, and now his son is a Sunderland fan as well. So yeah, I knew all about Sunderland before. Um, I mainly used to go to the London games, being from down south. I remember going to the Luton game. Like I don't even know what year it would have been, but Nyron Nosworthy would have been playing. Julio Arca, I'm pretty sure would have been playing. Would it have been him? I'm not sure if I got that right, but like there was just going to like the London games. We used to go to Fulham. We went to a Chelsea game because his dad, his like mum side of the family were Chelsea fans. So yeah, I already knew all about it and had a really strong kind of connection, and had been to loads of games and things like that. And like, don't get me wrong, we used to give the lads some grief for supporting Sunderland. But they were loud and proud about it. We used to go to football on a Saturday morning, and it'd be like Chelsea, Real Madrid, the odd Fulham shirt with where we were kind of growing up. No Brentfords because they were kind of League Two at the time, which has been a pretty impressive leap for them. But then yeah, then you'd have like the three brothers in their Sunderland kits, and then my other friend in his Sunderland kit. And it's funny as well. Like I remember kits through like sponsorships and things like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can remember all their kits. It is funny. So yeah, that made like the connection like bigger for me. So when I signed, it was like I kind of I'm really close with these lads and with their family, and my mum is close with their parents and things like that, and my dad is close with their dads and things like. And it was always football and sport and things like that. And then to kind of be one of the players who like they've supported for so long was yeah, it was a really proud moment. And for sure, when I signed, I wasn't expecting what happened to happen, if I'm completely honest. But you live and you learn, and I don't really have any. Well, I have one massive regret, but other than that, I have no regrets from ever being at Sunderland or in Sunderland. Or yeah, it was great.
What was I haven't wrote this down, but what was the regret out of curiosity? I may be jumping further forward here, but I can't not ask.
Like leaving the way that I left is just yeah, very. I look back on that, and it's like that's a real sore spot for me, really. Um, yeah, it's not a blame game or anything like that, but I feel like, and it's not a sob story or anything like that. And if you were to bump into people I've played with, I'm very open and honest about it that I didn't want to leave and I wasn't happy about leaving. And the decision I made to leave was kind of forced upon me, and it was a terrible decision, which ultimately, like, no one, no one packed my bags for me and took me away and said like you're done and ripped up my contract. I had to sign on the dotted line. So it's not. That's just football, though, you know. And we say that, and that's just one of those things that when people say that, they say, "Oh yeah, well it's football." Well, yeah, okay, I get that, and yeah, it is football, but like we are all humans and we are all people. We're not cattle at a cattle mart who you just sell and cut up and eat alive. You know, like that's like there's got to be some sort of holistic approach to it, thinking of the players and things like that. But at that time, um, I'd say at that time it was a factory. At that time in that factory, it was a pretty ruthless business, which is fair enough.
I'm probably jumping too far ahead here, and I will come back to you joining and the other stuff and that. But I remember when you left, because I remember I felt like we were like left short at the back at the time. And look, it worked out for Sunderland in the end, which is great ultimately. But I remember the Wise Men Say boys doing a podcast, and there was a big discussion about like, well, if you're letting Flanno go, we need to bring someone in at the back to replace because he played most of that season. And then I remember
Yeah,
I think the statement came out saying that it was kind of like in your best interest because I think you had 6 months left. Obviously, you didn't speak too much about it afterwards, but is that what kind of frustrates you? The fact that obviously you missed out on something you'd worked basically 4 years to get towards, and then I know there was a statement that came out afterwards kind of indicating that it was the right decision for the club to let you go.
yeah. I think they're always look. I'm not on social media, so I've not got a voice, and like that's kind of the way I like it and things like that. I like to kind of I'm quite opinionated. I'll again, if you were to speak to people I've played with and worked with at all the clubs I've been at, I'm not scared to say what I think. If I've got something to say in the dressing room, I'll say it. I'm a leader, and kind of always have been. And I'll never forget. I'll never forget the day. As in, like it was chaotic. Obviously, Lee Johnson had just left, which was again pretty crazy. Um, and I was under no, I was under like there was no confusing points for me. I was leaving at the end of the season, and not because I wanted to. That's because I'd already been told that I wasn't getting a new contract, along with probably nine other players. We'd all been told, um, and I think that culminated in Lee Johnson getting the sack because it was him who was telling us, because he wanted us to realise that like you need to make this work because you need to go out successfully, go out with a bang, and we were all working towards the same thing, and there was a great vibe in the dressing room. I remember sitting on that bench. I'd been dropped after we beat Portsmouth, um, and like the manager was like he didn't really have anything to say to me, and I didn't want to rock the boat the day before a game because I think them days are really important. So I just said, look, we'll just speak during the week, like, and I just said to him, well, I'm fuming about this, but like, let's just get on with it. Speak during the week, get behind the team. It's a big game, Bolton. And it went like 1-0, 2-0, and I'm like there, and I'm like, oh my god, like I wouldn't with how the fans were at that stage as well, and we'd had a bad experience at Bolton previously. I was just like, my god, like I wouldn't wish this. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy here. Went to 4, and I was thinking, oh my god, like it needs to stop, like went to 5, and and it was just like getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm just thinking, my God, like the lads need to get off the pitch here, like just fucking get off, forget about it. Try not to have too many arguments after the game, and just put it down as like we'll just come to it at a later at a later stage. You know, like kind of it's not something I agree with, but it's like just kind of sweep it under the carpet and just forget it and don't let it dent us. Um, and that was kind of how it was as a group. That was kind of how it was put together, and that worked out. There was some harsh words said afterwards, which is fair enough. Heat of the moment, people say things. You've got to be big enough and ugly enough to take it and stuff like that. But like I'm not a hugely sympathetic person, but like I was sat in that dressing room and I was just like, and there were some boys like playing in that day who've now Premier League footballers, and like that, I'm sure they still remember that day. And this is what the connection that we've all got. Um, so yeah, like that was a difficult time, but like I'd had a meeting with Lee Johnson. It'll be I'm pretending I don't remember the date. It's 22nd of December. It was, but it would have been the morning of the 23rd of December because we played Arsenal on the 22nd of December at the Emirates,
Yeah.
and we stayed over. Tough day at the office. Like they were a good team, and
I had a good
they
night
were,
that night, actually, weirdly enough.
yeah,
For getting beat 5-1, it was
yeah.
I don't know, it was a good performance in a weird way.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a damaging day, really. Like, obviously, we got beat, which is everyone expects us to get beat, but we were in the latter stages of competition, and that was great for us. But what was his name? Playing for Ipswich now, brilliant player, brilliant player.
Broadhead, Nathan
Broadhead,
Broadhead.
great lad, brilliant player. Like, honestly, couldn't speak highly enough of him. Scored that goal and just like made Ben White look like a League One defender, like, and he was the Premier League one. And then he pulled his hammy, and it was just like, right, great day out. But like, we got beat, which is annoying. But like, let's just do it properly. So we stayed over that night. Instead of staying over the night before the game, we stayed over the night afterwards. And Lee Johnson treats you all as individuals and as men. So like, if you want to have a meeting with him, he'll organise a meeting. If that's off the record, on the record, at the training ground, in a coffee shop in Durham, or in my case, breakfast in London. So we sat down and we had breakfast together. And I just said to him, I said, look, like, what's going on? I'm coming into the last 6 months of my contract. I've got some suitors, which he already knew about because they'd been in touch asking like about my availability and things like that. And he said, like, I'm not letting you go anywhere. You're not going anywhere. I was like, okay, that's fine. All I wanted was clarity. Whether that was, I'm going to give you a new 10-year deal, I would be absolutely buzzing. Or, look, at the end of the season, you're going, but you are not going to go in January. That's fine. I can get that organised. It's in my interest to get promoted because I will get a better contract at a better club for more money if I'm coming off the back of a promotion. So it keeps me motivated, keeps it all headed in the right direction. So we've had that meeting 23rd of December. It's all going well. We go on and win a lot of games, have a good January. Right near the end of January, obviously, what I just spoke about happened. And then we were just in the meeting. None of us were told that Lee Johnson was going to get the sack, and then we sat in this meeting, and like, I won't go into it because that's kind of private stuff, really. But we were sat there, and whoever it was told us what had happened, along with a bag full of lies, which he wasn't even trying to hide. He was just lying to all of us, which I think shows the level of disrespect there was at that time. That it was a factory. That's all it was. It seems to have changed now, which is great, and I think with it changing has caused what has happened, which is brilliant for the football club. But at that time, it was a factory and a conveyor belt and things like that. So we were told, and then that day passed, and then we're now on to deadline day. I got a phone call off of a player. I was in the car with another player, in the car with Bailey Wright at the time, because we used to drive in from Durham together every now and again. So we sat in the car driving in. My phone's going crazy, like, through the car. And he's like, "You sure you want to take it? You don't want to take it?" I was like, "Nah, forget that, it's fine." Anyway, it kept going, and it was someone else this time. It was someone who we both knew, another player who we both knew. So I picked it up, and he was like, "Oh, like, are you coming today then?" I was like, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And Bailey's looking at me like, thinking like, "Well, obviously you're not gonna leave." Like, I was playing ahead of him at the time and things like that. Like, I played nearly like 25, 30 games up to January or something like that. Well, I played the most games out of anyone in the squad. Um, so yeah, like, my missus was away at the time, and yeah, just like walked into the training ground, and it was pretty chaotic. Finding out who was training, who was not training. We didn't know who was in charge. Dodsey and Prot were kind of walking around, finding out what was going on, and that. And then there was like a big TV in the dressing room which tells you who's training and stuff like that. And I wasn't on the list. And I was just like, so I went and saw Dodsey. And Dodsey was just like, "Oh, I've been told that you're going." And I was like, "Oh, right, where is it? Barcelona or Real Madrid?" And like he didn't laugh. And that's when I was like, "Oh, like, this is obviously quite serious." Um, And then, yeah, I lost out on all of my opportunities that I had at the beginning of January because the club had said no. And yeah, uh, then eventually in the 11th hour, I took the option that I took, which ultimately wasn't the right thing to do. But that's you live and you learn. And I remember walking out of the training ground, and the boys in the dressing room were just like, "What is going on here?" But I did have also there was like a bit of another factor to it in respect to one of the players had played with a centre half who was in Newcastle at the time, and he was waiting on his medical, and apparently that was going to get done. So I was thinking, kind of, the club didn't know that I knew that, but I'd known that through one of the players in the dressing room had told me. He'd kind of rung me and said, like, just a heads up, like, this player is here waiting to do his medical. So, like, um, so yeah, that kind of edged me off as well in regards to I didn't want to get edged out and not play for 6 months or 3 months or 4 months and then be out of contract because that would have just been would have made life hard, um, in regards to how crazy the open market is and things like that. Whereas I could have secured something, which I did secure, and yeah, so it was a difficult time. It's all the things that you don't realise that go on with a move like that on deadline day. Um, family, houses, things like that, and yeah, it makes it difficult and uncomfortable. And then you never play well when you leave in January. You never play well after that. I had a few good games where I played well, but kind of just saw out the season really and started again the following season. Uh, but yeah, it was difficult.
At the time, Defoe would have been signing on the same day, wouldn't he? Defoe, Matete.
Yeah, so Defoe signed the day after. Yeah, yeah, because he signed out of the window because obviously he was on a free, wasn't
That's right. So the defender
he?
that came up, was that Danny Bart, or was Danny Bart signed before that? Was it somebody
No, Danny.
else?
I played with Danny Bart in
So he
the.
did.
So me and Danny played together, centre half together. We kept a clean sheet at home against Portsmouth, beat them 1-0, and then I got dropped for the following game,
Bolton.
which was the Bolton game.
I don't remember how that went. I try and
Yeah,
forget
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's it. That's it.
Um, Going back to like the first season, I was like looking through the first season a bit, which was tough if I'm honest with you after the weekend. But you've got to go through those hard times, and it's probably why it felt so good as a fan at the weekend. But
Yeah, of course.
I can't help but look back at the first season, and there's two things that stick out to me. The first one is Josh Madger going. The next one's Will Grigg signing now. To my knowledge, obviously you've played with Will quite a bit, but before I ask you about Will, like how much of an effect did it have on the team losing Josh Madger?
Um, I think Josh Madger was. I've never seen anyone like finish kind of like him. There's a game that sticks out in my mind, and it was Barnsley at home,
Mm, 4-2.
and yeah, and he just tore them apart. I remember being stood at the back. They scored two goals from set pieces, two great headers.
Kiefer Moore.
Yeah, it was Kiefer Moore. Yeah,
Thanks very much again, Kiefer.
two great headers he scored that night, I think, and they weren't in it, and like we were kind of running away with it at that point. Like Josh just, I remember one of the goals. It's Ethan Pinnock. He just
Mm.
Cruyffed him about, it must have been 30 yards out, Cruyffed him, took one more touch and just smashed it in. And I was just stood at the back like, this is fucking great. Like, this kid just gets the ball, scores, taking the pressure right off. Like, this is brilliant. So, yeah, it was a huge loss. When you sat in a dressing room and you're playing with a player like him, like you forgive a lot of things. Josh he wasn't great for the team. He was a great lad and really, really nice kid. But his kind of off the ball work wasn't amazing. But when he was doing what he was doing, no one cared. It was like, we'll all run a little bit further for you because you keep scoring the goals. And then when you stop scoring the goals, you're going to run into a bit of grief. But he didn't stop scoring, so that's brilliant. And ultimately, that's why he did move on. I think the boys, well, like certainly me, I think I was a bit disappointed, maybe a little bit underwhelmed for him when he went where he went. Uh, like leaving to go there, I just feel like it was a bit. I don't know. It's just he would have had his reasons, and that's completely up to him. And he's had a far more illustrious career than what I've managed to have. So he obviously made the right decision. Um, but yeah, no, it was disappointing for sure. And I think quickly skipping forward to like the second season, like when you just take goals out of a team, it becomes so difficult. It's like so difficult. Like we lost goals from midfield, we lost goals up front in all these seasons. And it's like it just becomes really, really difficult. And Josh leaving was we kind of all knew it was going to happen because
Mm.
we weren't silly enough to know where the club was at, and there was money obviously going to be exchanged for him, which was of an interest to the football club. Um, but yeah, it was a crazy decision looking back on it. But hindsight is, especially when it comes to footballers, hindsight is a pretty good thing.
Obviously, you're playing with you bring. If that's the thing, I remember at the time. Like, if I remember at the time, Josh going, I was like, shit. But then I was like, Jack Ross had already mentioned about Will Grigg maybe coming in, and you thought, well, he scored loads of goals at that level. He's obviously probably going to get for like 1 million or something. We've now all got that hindsight and benefit, or should I say, benefit of Netflix to see what actually happened, which is just like, pardon my French here, but fucking mental, really, when you look back at it. But you played with Will, and I think, look, I'll openly say he scored goals elsewhere, but he was not one of the better strikers I'd seen at Sunderland. It's probably a lad that you know. It just didn't work out, and I think I knew from the minute he rounded the keeper against Blackpool and put it in the side netting that that was going to become very what we'd classify now as old school Sunderland. But as someone who'd played with him before, why do you think it didn't work out with Will?
Um, I think he had like a. I think I again like I've never been part of a 2, 3, 4 million pound move. So I think it was a little bit on his behalf, an underestimation. When you sat down with a piece of paper and looked at the squad that we had, and he knew some of the players in the dressing room, like myself, um, and we knew how good he had been and was at that particular time. For us, we were kind of like like this is going to be a great signing. Um, And I just feel like there are moments that you talk about there. I feel like it's difficult, yeah, just like not getting off the mark. I remember Aiden giving him a penalty
Mm.
at one stage, and I was just kind of like looking like that's not Will Grigg. Like this guy just scores goals. Like that's what he'd done, and at like every level he'd been at, he'd just scored goals. And I can't put my finger on it. I mean, I like you just said it there, and this isn't me having a dig at you, but I hate that saying, like oh, it's just like a Sunderland thing. Like I used to hear that all the time, and I get it. Like you guys have had more hurt than what I've had, being Sunderland fans and things like that. I totally understand that. But like that used to really, really get to me. Um, and then you look at like Griggy, and you're a bit like, yeah, kind of. It's easy to say it, and it kind of does make sense. So like, just say it. But like, footballers are. I don't know. It's probably a bit like a racehorse situation. Like they can be stubborn, they can be silly, and then one day they can just be unbelievable, and then the next race they can be crap. Like that's just like it's so difficult. Like to put your finger on something is really really hard. Um, like it's a tough question for me to answer as well. Like I'm close with Griggy, like you say. You've done your research. Like I've played with Griggy at multiple clubs. Like I roomed with him at Northern Ireland as well. Like we are close.
He scored goals before and after as well. It's not
And
like
he looks back at it with like complete regret. I know that. I know that he does. I think the Netflix thing just like piled on as well. Like it was it was like if he'd gone and scored 40 goals that season, then it would have been fine. But because he doesn't, it's just like all of the other fans were itching for him to fail. But again, that's part of being a footballer, isn't it? Difficult time. I can't really put my finger on why it didn't work out for him. Like, but yeah, it was a difficult time for Griggy for sure, for sure. And yeah, like Netflix definitely didn't help. Definitely didn't help that, but it got the views,
Yeah, it did. And it's funny,
and
I
it
was,
still gets mentioned to this day. I'm not
yeah,
talking about Griggy. I'm not talking about Griggy. I saw an interview with one of the members of the ownership after the final at the weekend, referring to the Netflix documentary. So they they might say that they don't like it, but they love it. They absolutely love it.
it has got its benefits in ways I just wish it
Of
wasn't.
course.
At the
Yeah,
time,
of course.
it's still incredibly hard to watch. But look, when you talk about Netflix, it's funny. One signing that really has worked out, and it's unbelievable when you look back. You joined with him the same sort of time when he was a fresh-faced young boy from Wickham. Luke O'Nien, I think we see an awful lot of what he's like now, and I spoke to Aidan about what he was like in the dressing room, sort of as he was maturing into the squad and becoming a first team player. But you were like more or less signing, I think more or less the same time as him. It must have been like days
Mm,
apart. So you'd seen him from that game that he reflects back on an awful lot, the Charlton game when he got took off at half
yeah.
time and he was, for want of a better word, crap. And I remember he came on at Shrewsbury when he scored and I went, oh no, he's rubbish him. I've changed my opinion on him. I love him now. But watching where he is now and remembering what he was like the first year that he was there, like how does that feel and what was he like in those early days?
Um, Feeling wise, I've got no feeling towards. I think it's brilliant. Like for a player to have gone from, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying he played in the National League, League Two, League One, Championship, Premier League. Like ticked all the boxes, ticked all of the boxes. Other than playing international football, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Like incredible. Like if you could sit here and I could say about my son now, he's going to be a footballer, and I could choose whatever path he would have. I would want him to be at a Champions League club and play his whole life in the Champions League. Like that would be it. But if you could have a backup to that, it would be have all them promotions and go through all them leagues. Because and then if you could add a sprinkling of international football on there and play at a major tournament, that'd be amazing. And Luke's done that. And look, Luke is very, 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 very polarizing. Very polarizing. He is as close to Marmite as you can possibly get. Um, I'm sure he doesn't think that. Um, but yeah, no, he definitely is. He definitely is, and I think I think he might struggle in the Premier League, not as a footballer, definitely not as a footballer, because all Luke will do is just work harder, and that is unbelievable. Like he's the epitome of 10,000 hours. That's what Luke is. Like I know I played with a player who played with him at Watford when he was a kid, and this lad was a first team regular. And he always asked me about Luke. Like, how's he getting on? Like, I'm so surprised that he's doing that. He's doing that. I bet there's loads of people who say that about Luke, but all the critics have been proved wrong. Like, Luke is undoubtedly going to play a part in the Premier League, and I personally think that he'll do well. But some of his antics might be, as much as some people love him, it might not work out for him. Them kind of things. Uh, yeah, just I'm sure Aidan has touched on dressing room times. Yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult. Luke is a nice guy, a nice kid, has got a lovely family, comes from a lovely family, well brought up, polite. Uh, I think everyone would be kind of proud to have him as their son, almost. You know, that's what I'd say about Luke. He's just like a really, really nice guy, but had a certain way he wanted to do things, and that was kind of doing things to stand out rather than doing what was best for the team. I think there was a few problems with that. Um, he seems to have found his place within the dressing room and the squad, and I think that's really helped him. I think that's really helped him. Also, being one of the senior players has helped Luke massively. because as soon as you're a senior player, when you say something, people will stop and listen. And then you get some people who will stop and listen and then just ignore it. But
Mm.
at least they've stopped and listened. Whereas when you're 23, 24, and you're a bit quirky and you're trying to do things to rough people up the wrong way, and then you want people to stop and listen, they're not going to do it. And as well, when you've got people who've had pretty good careers and things like that, who have like freshly come out of the Premier League and things, then yeah, they're not gonna stop and listen. So I think he struggled like that. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see him next season. I think he'll like I personally think he'll do really well, like as a player, as long as he keeps his off-field antics to a minimum. Just because it's going to be a tough season next season, and people will always look for something to blame. Monday Night Football, they'll look for something to blame. Them two guys on there, and then you've got all of them. Everyone in the world watches the Premier League. Everyone in the world watches the Premier League. So, and they'll all be looking for something to blame when it goes wrong because they're going to have a tough period, you know. Um, I'm sure they'll be hoping they do what Sheffield United do, and recruitment will be a big part of that. When they almost got to the brink of that European that first season and done really really well. I think that's what all teams aspire to get to, isn't it?
Mm.
But yeah, you don't want to be scapegoated for the wrong reason. You just don't want that. And for someone like Luke, like he needs to realise that could happen if he doesn't. Whereas if he just does all of his interviews afterwards and is as nice a guy, I saw his interview after the game and he said, "I don't know why you're interviewing me," like, and how pleased he was. And I thought he came across really, really well. I thought that was really good. And if he's more like that and does more interviews like that, then I think he'll be absolutely fine. Uh, but yeah, um, hard work's got him where he is, and he's a great example to so many people of hard work can get you to the very top. And fair play, fair play. No one can say anything about that, and that's testament to Luke, and no one can take it off him. And brilliant.
So just no kissing anyone when you get to the Premier League is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think that kind of stuff's going to go down too well for us.
You talked about roughing people up before, and like I was racking my brain last night, and I do this thing when I do interview former players, and I think, what's the first thing that comes to mind with a player? And it's funny what comes to mind with you. It's like, what's your favorite thing about Tom Flanagan? Loved getting involved in a fight with Pompey players. That was always my favorite thing. Like you were like the first to defend, no matter like you could be like 60 yards away, and you'd be up there like roughing a Pompey player up now. There was a bit of needle between us two. It was like quite a funny era looking back to it. And I remember you got into a scrap with, I think it was Nathan Thompson, I think. How much did you enjoy those battles with Pompey and why did you have to get involved every time, Tom?
I don't know. Like I just felt like I don't know. I was just like I'm still like it now. Really, I'm just like a team player. Like that. That's what I am. Like, um, yeah, I'm just like I'm one of them players who like the dressing room will the dressing rooms I've played in. They for sure appreciate me, and I'm always nervous going to other clubs because I know that people won't like me because they've played against me. Um, but kind of it's a short career. I want to win as well. Like I want to win. Like that's all I care about. Like sulking after training. Like I'm big enough and ugly enough to admit that. Um, but yeah, like just they were always near the top. We were always near the top. It was always on edge. I don't know really. Like we were the scout for everyone, and they were a big club at the level, and even for them, we were a scout. But yet they'd still go on like they were a big club. Well, if you're a big club, like no one's a scout. Um, so yeah, there was I don't know, there was just a bit in it, and I liked the group of players that I played with. I liked all of them, like all of the groups. I didn't like everyone individually. You're never going to like everyone individually, but like as a team, I liked us all, you know. I mean, I remember Southend away. I think we got beat. They stayed up on the last day of the season. We rested a few players. A few players didn't come. I got given the option. I was like, nah, like I'm playing, and I just went. I just completely lost it after the game. Like in the dressing room, just like went like ballistic. Like, fucking need to get hold of ourselves. Like we're going into the playoffs. Like obviously Sunderland now have proved that that doesn't count. But I was like, we need to win games going into this, you know. So yeah, I just kind of leave it all out there, really. You know, like I'm just going to give it all, kind of. As well, it probably comes a little bit down to ability as well. Like I think I'm a good footballer, but in the realms of football, I'm probably not. Like compared to some of the players out there, and it's like gaining that little bit of advantage, you know, like having that maybe that like little bit of a scare factor, or like, oh, like I've got to play against this guy again. He's a fucking nightmare. Like, you know, like just trying to get them little 1%. Um, and yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was like as well. Like I got quite into the fans as well. Like they were always well up for it. I like Fratton Park a lot, as well, so that was always quite good. I'm not one to like wind fans up. I don't really get involved with them, but you know, like when you make a big tackle and like you get a big cheer and stuff like that. I'm not one for like, and I never will be, and I like categorically hate it. But when footballers these days make a tackle and then celebrate, it really winds me up. It's just like, just get on with your work. Like you're there to do a job, do the job. Fans appreciate it. They'll go away. They'll be on their coaches on the way home, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, what about when he made that tackle?" You don't need to know about it. You don't need a pat on the back. Like the fans will appreciate it, and you'll gain that interest next week from the start of the game, because they'll remember it from the following week. So that's just the way that I see it. Um, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed them games. I really enjoyed them games. And yeah, like obviously getting beat on penalties by them and stuff like that. There was just, I don't know. There was always a bit of to and fro, but the big club has shown shown its stripes now, hasn't it? I suppose.
Funny when you mentioned about getting stuck in and enjoying the fan base. I think Max Power and Cattermole almost enjoyed getting involved with the fans too much that night that Luke went over the bollards
Yeah,
to him.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly
Um,
right.
looking at I don't like talking about it, but it feels a little bit easier after the weekend. That Charlton game,
Yeah,
admittedly, like I can't imagine what it must have felt like for you, but as a fan, it was probably one of the toughest moments, if not actually, if I'm honest, the toughest because of what came previously. That you kind of go, oh, at least we might win games in League One. That was kind of my thought process at the time as a fan, and then we did, and then towards the end, you touched on that Southend game. I think we played Fleetwood, and it was just like, and it's quite hard to stomach as a fan because predominantly we hadn't been at that level for a long, long time. But it gets to the Charlton game, and you go, come on, let's go for it. Because the Pompey game, like when we won 1-0 and Maguire scored the volley, I didn't come home till about 5 in the morning. I'm going to be honest with you, because it felt like the first time I could celebrate for a while. We really wound them up away from home, got the 0-0 draw. Maguire winds up Tom Naylor, I think it was, with the ball getting thrown off his head, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And it gets to Charlton and you get gifted that goal after 3 minutes and you think, oh God, this is all like going perfectly. But I can't explain it. We just never got going that day. Like, and then what happened happened. From a player's perspective, what do you feel went wrong that day? Because we'd gone into it with those two good games against Pompey, but we just never really got going.
yeah. I don't really know. You know, I'll be honest with you. I try not to think about that game too much. Sometimes I'll put the TV on and it'd be on the TV because it's
Hmm.
like one of the past games. And I now actually play with Lyle Taylor now, so
Oh dear.
that hurts. That hurts most days, if I'm honest. Um, but no, difficult. It's wrong of me to say that the goal at that early on stage and how it happened kind of killed us a bit. But obviously, we lost Max,
Oh yeah, we did. That's right.
as well. Just kind of, I don't know. It was just like a bit of unsettlement. Like, I don't know. It wasn't nerves because like we played in front of a bigger crowd, literally like 8 weeks previous, you know, and we played quite well that day, and kind of again disappointed to lose. Yeah, I haven't really got an answer for you, really. I mean, the way the goal goes in at the end, and just like I remember, I actually got the train home after that game, just by myself. I just left the ground by myself, walked out normal, got the train home, went and sat at home on the sofa by myself. My family and that was still at Wembley. Um, I was just like, what? I was like, where do we go from there? Uh, like just could have been like an unbelievable season, like minutes away from being an unbelievable season in regards to the penalty shootout and then losing how we lost. It's just like kind of really really difficult, really difficult. It was a nothing game. It was probably a terrible watch. I remember neither sets of fans were particularly great on the day. Um, just with like there was just nothing in the game, was there? From what I remember, I don't remember it that well. Like just it was just like no chances.
I didn't
Uh,
even celebrate the goal when it went in. Like I was
yeah,
sat
because no
with
one really
my
knew no
no,
one really knew what had gone on. Yeah,
sat with my fiance and I went, that says 1-0. And I went, oh my God, we've scored. And I
yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah. It's
describe to you
true.
why I didn't
Yeah,
see it
because
go
we didn't
in.
celebrate as like players either, really, because it was like, who do you who do you
Who do you
celebrate?
hug?
Who do you celebrate with? And as well, it's like it is in your mind. It's easy for someone to say, "I treat it like it's 0-0," but you've now got something. Like you are
Mm.
at that stage, you are in the championship, so it's yours to lose. And that's a difficult kind of mindset to go. If you score the goal yourself and it's a bit of brilliance, or it's a header from a corner, or something like that, like as in the team, you have that period where you all celebrate together, and you're like, right, let's do this now, like. But because it wasn't us, it was just a bit like, yeah, strange, strange. Really, really strange day. Terrible ending to the season. Yeah, it was a difficult, really, really difficult time. Horrible summer. Didn't get any time off because I went away with the national team. And then obviously you go away with the national team. You're one of the last to join up with the team, and everyone is like, doesn't really want to ask you, but kind of does want to ask you, and it's like, oh, unlucky mate, and it's just like an open wound for months.
I know it hurts like everyone in the team individually and the fan base, and I can imagine. Was it like a particularly hard moment for you because it deflects off you at the end? So like the cameras are kind of like the celebrations when you watch it back. Sorry to bring it up, mate, by the way.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like the cameras are concentrating on like Johnny Williams and all that celebrating, but like it's you and John McLaughlin in the eye line because it's deflected off you and gone past John.
yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
you're
That's
like the
right. Yeah, yeah.
focal point.
So he's headed it over the top of Brian, and
Yeah.
it's just come on, just reacted, tried to just stick a leg out, it's just hit my shin pad, and it's just gone in the roof of the net, just like just kind of standing there like in disbelief. I thought it was a foul at the time, if I'm honest. Kind of just waiting, praying for that, but yeah, just and yeah, like you say, they celebrated like right there, like right beside me. It was just like, what did we do? We kicked off, and what was it
Pretty
like?
much.
Two
Second.
passes, two passes, and then blew it. And then yeah, you're just standing there in front of all these people, just like yeah, just it is mad. It's the maddest experience ever because you've just got like one half of the ground just like sat down completely silent if they haven't left, and then you've got like the other side just going like ballistic, like because like obviously now when you
Yeah,
score in the
it's
last minute of a game, it's
nice the
probably
other
the
way
best.
around.
It's the hardest way to do it, but it's probably like the best way to do it at the same time. That's the playoffs, isn't it? Like
Mm.
if you go up in the playoffs and win in the playoff final, then it's the best way to get promoted because you've extended the season and you've got them nail biting moments. But ultimately, you've got two more wins or three more wins and like to celebrate. Whereas everyone like there is something to be said for winning the league and getting 120 points, and oh, that'd be amazing. But like when you're rolling out every week as a player, it's great. You win every game, brilliant. But as a fan, it's great to win. But when you're playing against teams and you're just beating them 3 and 4, like as a fan, there's got to be a period where you're like, oh, great, we'll go up. But then like that, like what you've just experienced is,
better than anything.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be, isn't it? You know, it's just like, whereas don't get me wrong, I'm sure the owner sat there like, I'd rather we got 120 points and just got it over and done with, be promoted by Christmas. Don't worry about it in the second half of the season. Like, you know, that's just like, that's that fan thing, isn't it? Which I think is really, really important. Um, but yeah, then you've got the other side of it where you do what we do.
The thing I remember most about it, we talked off air. I did a podcast with Methan the day later. I talked to Aidan about this. Now, I remember doing the podcast and it felt incredibly raw for me to the point where it's on Netflix for all to see. I've kind of gone through Charlie and I'd do it again to be honest, but it's probably the rawness that helped me feel like that. And I remember him specifically saying, "Oh, we're going to target 100 points next season." Now, spoke to Aidan McGeady about that, and he was just like, the day after, you were all just kind of hurting from, like, really quite the worst possible end to a season you could imagine after an already difficult time. And he's heaped this level of pressure on you 2 months before the season starts. You naturally hear that because I know some players will have heard of it just the way it is. How much pressure does that sort of add when you're only just trying to get over what's just happened?
Yeah, I think it does add pressure. There's also something to be said for you're then sitting there thinking, well, like, who are we going to bring in? Who are we going to
Mm,
sign? How are we going to make this squad better? Uh, and yeah, I'm not great with kind of who came in at what time. So I wouldn't actually know who we signed at
like
that point.
Jordan Willis, Lee Burge, like a couple of those that
Oh, was
sort
it
of
that
like
stage? Was it that
Conor
stage there?
McLaughlin.
Yeah, Conor McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, like when you say that, are you going to get 100 points? I think that's what it's about. It's easy to say things. Um, it's that classic adage, isn't it? Talk is cheap. Really, it's easy to sit here and say something. But I try not to say anything that I wouldn't back myself. So yeah, yeah, difficult really. I think like myself, I was really ready for it. I was looking forward to it. Like I said, I didn't really take any time off. I think I took 2 weeks off. I went away on international, came back, went away for 2 weeks. I was given like 3.5 weeks off. I came back early and just kind of nailed down. I wanted to really kind of get the season started and uh, yeah, kind of get it going. And look, this isn't me sitting there saying I'm an unbelievable pro. I had been on holiday and I thought instead of running by myself, it might just be a bit easier if I'm doing it with all the boys. So yeah, I was just trying to save a bit of pain. It's not because I'm like an ultimate professional or anything like that, but yeah, no, it's just difficult times, difficult times. But then it's football, isn't it? Like you've got to remember that it's football. It's not the real world. It's not real life. You know, it's not real difficult times. You know, there's people doing far more difficult things than that. But yeah, it's just kind of you walk in on that first day of pre-season, you see the boys, and there was a lot of talk about people leaving and things like that. So that would have been, like I say, I'm really bad with when people come and when people leave. But George would have left them, wouldn't he? Honeyman.
Yeah, George left at the time he
Yeah,
went
so
home.
like George had scored. I remember that George had scored a few goals, quite a few goals. So we lost them goals from midfield. Just made it difficult, really. You know, like we just kind of yeah, we signed people, but we let goals leave. Um, yeah, difficult. Really, really, really strange. And I think when you're playing for a club like Sunderland in the lower leagues, even in the Championship, maybe not like last year and the year before, because Sunderland were quite new back to the Championship as such. They didn't have that same level of respect. But like, if teams got 0-0 against Sunderland, like, it's great.
Mm.
Like you've got to work harder to score than what other teams. Like we used to play people and win 1-0 or draw 1-1. They'd go and get beat 4-0 the week after because they've done their bollocks playing against us. Like this used to happen all the time. So yeah, that was a. him saying that was yeah was pretty difficult, really. But like gave me like a bit of a push in regards to like obviously I don't want to get replaced. Um, one thing I'd say about my time at Sunderland, I've played with more centre halves at Sunderland than I did at my previous bloody five clubs. Um, but yeah, that's just I don't know, strange.
Talking about the goals that we lost from the team, right? So Jack Ross gets sacked. I was at I think it was a Lincoln game. I was down there. Not a great moment. And I remember at the time, if I'm honest, going, yeah, that's the right decision. I think it's the right one because Lincoln was really difficult. And then Parkinson comes in, and let's just say I suddenly changed my mind on the Jack Ross sacking. But like, look, I've spoken to him openly about it. I think he's been quite open about it, Aiden himself, about the situation, in the sense that he wasn't really given much of a reason as why it happened. But when you talk about missing goals from a team, there was points where, from an offensive perspective, Aidan McGeady was pretty much what we had to get us dug out the shit. And you knew that as fans, and you knew he was the best player in the division. Then all of a sudden, goes McDonald's, as football sometimes do, they get the calories back in. We understand this. But the next week, he's suddenly dropped without any explanation by Phil Parkinson. You're one of the more experienced players in the dressing room at that time. You're seeing someone that, as you said before, you're close to, you still speak to. He sat in with the under 21s without really giving a reason. What did you make as a senior pro of the fact that basically our best player had been ostracised for no apparent reason?
Um, yeah, it was a mad time. Look, I've not listened to Aidan's podcast, so I don't know what he said about it.
It's very
So
good. You should listen to it.
I'm not gonna pile on top. But there is there was some people from within the club who for sure were happy to see Aidan doing what he was doing, even though it was detrimental to the team, which was catastrophically naive, like naive. Uh, and yeah, I mean, look, to further your career, you need to play for a good team. Really, you need to be a good player and play for a good team. And to play for a good team, you want to have the best players out there on the pitch. So that's kind of all. That's kind of all I cared about. Look, was Aiden difficult at times? Yeah, and I completely understand why, because he'd been where he was at the very top playing in the Champions League to now playing in League One. You see top players who turn into managers and they can't do it because they're asking players to do things and they can't do it and they can't understand why they can't do it and they've got no. It's like reasoning with a toddler. Like you just can't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like you just can't do it, can you? Like you're explaining to them like if you fall over, it is gonna hurt, and they just can't get their head around it. It's like this is so simple, and like that's kind of like the best analogy that I can do it. Look, the people who were responsible for it, they will never they will never admit to it, and they won't. But we know who it was. And it's difficult because they were well liked. They were well liked players within the fan base and things like that. But ultimately, they really cost us. And it was all pretty cloak and dagger, which made that season really difficult. It was a difficult dressing room. And I've done interviews before, press, saying how together we were and that the dressing room's brilliant and all of this stuff that people talk about, our dressing room isn't great and it's toxic and all that is a load of shit. I've literally stood in front of journalists and said that after games and things like that. And it was a complete lie. It was a complete lie because I didn't want it to get I didn't want it to get out of hand. I didn't want my name to be put to this kind of a situation. So I was looking after myself, but at the same time, like what goes on in the dressing room stays in the dressing room, and that is a
Hmm.
private matter. Like that's how I see it. But yeah, it was just like lads who were unable to take criticism, unable to stray away from the rule book as such, as in, like, yeah, okay, this is what the manager wants us to do, but we also have our own brains, and we are also some of the best players in the league. So we should be able to win a game without smashing the ball from the 6 yard box to the other 6 yard box with as minimal touches as possible, you know. So, um, so yeah, I think that was the frustration, and there was probably five of us, I'd say, 5 or 6 of us who were trying to keep that dressing room together. But it was in two halves, and it wasn't like a polyfiller job. It was we needed we needed we needed a cement mixer. Um, but yeah, I mean, just and for the manager to back the 4 players that he backed over, and he didn't speak to any of the other players. He just backed these 4 players, and went with that, and that made it really, really difficult for us, because ultimately it put us in a position where we were weaker, because none of them players were having a particularly great season, and they didn't proceed to have one either. So we were all pretty burnt by that. I think when he came back, I think that made it look even worse, because he really did prove everyone wrong. I think, what did he get? The most goal involvements that season, and he only played 20. He played less than 20 games or something like that.
COVID season, because
he set up 4 goals. He set up Charlie
White.
Goals,
That's right.
That's the game. Set up Charlie's 4 goals. That was like his second game back or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like, look, like, again, I don't know any of these players, but you speak to people about like Dwight York and Andy Cole. By all accounts, they didn't even like each other. That's fine. As long as when we're on the football pitch, we're all doing the same thing. We're all pulling in the same direction. Walk in the dressing room. You sit down one end. You sit down the other end. Don't talk to each other. It's fine. It's fine. Like, that's absolutely fine. The rest of us, we'll sit in the middle, and then we can talk to both fractions, you know, if that's how you want to be. But like, we're all trying to get somewhere, and by doing this, it's counterproductive. I just could not get my head around it, and I didn't know at the time exactly who it was. It was fairly obvious. I had a pretty good idea, but then Phil Parkinson and Lee Johnson told Aidan exactly who it was, and that made it worse.
I know there'll be people who want me to ask you directly. I don't think it's the right thing to do, so I won't.
No, I will. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't tell you, because it's a slight on them. It's a slight on them, and that's not a good look for them. And again, like, it's private.
I agree.
In the dressing room at the time.
There is something I need to ask you about. It's kind of I don't want to say something in folklore. It was just a really big rumor, and I tried to ask Jack Baldwin about it, but he couldn't remember. You talk about that dark period under Parkinson. I remember we got beat at Scunthorpe and Leicester City under 21s, and it was how do I put this? Shit. Wasn't good. I think we dropped to 15th, which is like the lowest position in our history. And I understand. The rumour goes that you went to Tesco and there was an incident with a trolley. How true is that?
Yeah, that did happen. That did happen. Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. It was pretty crazy, really. It wasn't. It wasn't the. It wasn't Phil Parkinson wasn't the manager though. It was Jack Ross.
Oh, before Pocky.
Yeah, Jack Ross was the manager at the time. Yeah. I was in the big Tesco. I'd tell you exactly where I was. I was in the big Tesco's at Durham.
Mm-hmm.
The big Tesco's in Durham, and just like mental, just walking down the aisle. Might have been after that crazy Coventry game. I think it was after the Coventry game.
Oh, it was? Yeah, the 5-4.
Yeah, it was after the Coventry game, 5-4. Like, I've played with 2 boys who played in that Coventry game previously. Like, since that game, I've played with them. I played with them at Shrewsbury, and they were just both like, "How mental was that?" And I was like, "Let's not talk about it." Like,
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, just
Jeff Butler
crazy.
doesn't want that
No,
bringing up anymore, I'm telling you.
just crazy, like mental. And like to be fair, like look, football is football, and me and Jack, me and Jack bore the brunt of that game,
Hmm.
even though there's 20 other people on the pitch, and that's fair enough. And that's kind of like what you sign up for when you're a centre half. Like you do get a bit of heat, and I think it was kind of also that we'd been playing pretty well together. And then yeah, and that happened. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, in that big Tesco's in Durham, I was down the meat aisle. Guy just like guy just barged the like with his own trolley, just barged like the corner of the trolley, just went into like the handle, the blue handle just like went into my hip, and I just turned around. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, mate." Like, and he was like, just went off like what the fuck was that about yesterday? Like, call yourself a footballer and all this and all that. Like, what's going on? Like, it's not good enough. Like, Coventry. I remember him, he said Coventry about 5 times. Coventry, Coventry. He was with his missus. And then his missus was like, no, 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 like, just leave it, leave it. I was like, all right, okay. And then she had a pop as well. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, this is mad. I just walked off. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, this is mental. Um,
I'm pleased you
yeah.
confirmed that wasn't just a rumor because it's kind of
No,
like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it was true. Yeah, it was true. Yeah, interesting. Just like a crazy time, like,
yeah.
and as well, like, probably like I'm a fairly normal person, so I went about my life in a fairly normal way. Like, I wasn't a Premier League footballer on 100 grand a week, so like, I didn't have someone going and doing my shopping for me, like the housekeeper or the nanny. So like, I'd go and do it, So kind of you leave yourself exposed at times. But like that's one time I was there for 3.5 years, played 115 or something odd games, like lost at Wembley twice. Like there's been a lot of times for people to give me a bit. Um, and it only ever happened twice. Only ever happened twice that I can remember where like and one of them was actually at a ground, so that's probably doesn't really count. But yeah, twice. So that's I think that's a pretty good return. So considering how many bloody Sunderland fans there are, my God, like I was at honestly, no word of lie, right? I was at Alton Towers with my kids yesterday. I'm standing there, I'm watching Bluey live. So I've got like
Was he good?
these these massive figurines there, and my kids are loving it. Like geezer comes up to me, puts his hand like over my shoulder. I'm like, and he's like, "Are you right, mate?" I was like, "Yeah, you're fine." He's got like his Sunderland coat on. I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're right." He was like, "Oh good." He was like, "Did you watch the game the weekend?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He said it obviously. He was just like, "Oh, how good is it?" And that I was like, "Yeah, great." And like they're great. They're great. I remember I moved house. I moved into a house, and this would have been after this incident, so I was still like a little bit cagey as such. And like the double garage door was open, and there was a bloke in there on a ladder, and he was painting in there. I still speak to him now. Massive Sunderland fan, Stevie, his name is. Crazy Sunderland fan, goes to every game. Took his missus for their honeymoon to Birmingham away, and all that. Like old boy, great lad. Like his son is a mad Sunderland fan. Like just a Sunderland family. Like they are. I've walked in, he's up the step ladder, I've walked in, I want to see his big fucking Sunderland tattoo on his calf. And he's got his top off, he's got like a black cat on his back. And I'm like, oh no, like anyway, I still speak to him now. I genuinely I text him before the finals. He'll text me if he sees me score or something like that. Like I'm unbelievable, unbelievable guy. His son unfortunately got cancer, but got the all clear not too long ago. Unbelievable. Like just like I've had two bad moments, and don't get me wrong, like there's been some time when I've been stood on the pitch and been getting some real heat, but like that's part of it. Like you could take the rough with the smooth. Like there's been times where it's been unbelievable. I remember playing Bradford at home, Boxing Day, 40, what was it, 42,000 or something.
46.
46, was it 46,000? And I've got this lad on the floor and like by his throat, and everyone's like just fucking like absolutely gunning for me, like loving it. I was just like, yeah, it's brilliant. Like Boxing Day, like got my family up. Like that's what you want to play in. Do you know what I mean? For people like that, for fans like that, like great. Yeah. So yeah, like look, there was that time. There was one other, but but yeah, no, great, great. It's one of them, isn't it? It's kind of
So it's the
you've got to
pressure of playing
wear
for
it
Sunderland. I mean,
exactly as well.
I don't like. I would never do it myself. I don't like it, but I suppose the bigger the club, sometimes the more it means to people. And as you said before, the lad that you know has got. I was listening to an interview with Wilson Isidore last night, and he says it's crazy. Loads of people around the town have Sunderland tattoos, and I'm just like, well, yeah, but I
Yeah.
suppose you don't see that everywhere. Like I do kind of
No,
get
no.
it.
I think when I go on holiday, if I see like football tattoos, I think I'm going to see a Sunderland one, I'm going to see a Sheffield Wednesday one, and I'm going to see a Leeds one.
Yeah,
Like that, they're the three. They're the three blokes who I'm going to see with a tattoo. Like that's what I think in my head. There are obviously others, like you get your England ones and stuff like that, but like they're the ones I think in my head, like that I've seen more often than not.
funnily enough, I've got this is going to be an audio podcast, and we'll just put clips out. I don't think a lot of people know this. I've got SFC tattooed on the inside of my lip.
Yeah,
So yeah, but it looks a bit shite now, so no one ever sees it, mate. So for if anyone wants to ask, you're not seeing it. Look, we've touched a lot on some difficult times because you can't deny it, there were. But there was a period in your time at Sunderland, which was in your final season, where it just felt like things were turning, and it wasn't an easy season, although it ended up well. And I'm looking through the squad and I'm thinking, right, what changed in that summer? Why did I feel positive? Like, why did I feel good? I remember the first game of the season when we were due back. I was in the Players Lounge, funnily enough, like only the second time I've ever done it through Lee Burge, funnily enough, and went in there. I was like, oh, the vibe's good here. Is it just because COVID's over and everyone's back at the game? And Ross Stewart's there, and Aidan McGeady scored the penalty, and we've won 2-1, and Maxi Powers signed for them, Charlie White, and all their players have gone to Wigan, we've beaten them. And I thought, right, what changed that day? And or what changed that season? I'm looking at the recruitment. Nathan Broadhead, Dennis Serkin, Huggins, Callum Doyle, the only person who looks like a giant but actually has a face like Justin Bieber.
yeah.
Um, all players that are now going to be playing Premier League football next season. And I think it's quite clear there was a change in the recruitment that year. How much did you notice? Like, how much did that year feel like, hang on, we might actually do something here? Because it felt like that in the fan base.
I've got to be honest. Look, I'm not going to hide anything. I'm a big Lee Johnson fan. Like, I
Ooh.
really, I really got on with him. Like, I thought he's a great manager. Like, don't get me wrong, he is nuts. Like,
Oh,
he's nuts.
yeah, crazy.
But like, he will admit that.
Yeah.
And I think when you own it, it's probably a little bit more acceptable. Um, but like, he's like football nuts. Like, I don't know his wife or his kids or anything like that, but like how they are all still together is like beyond me because he must never have any family time. He is like on football 110% of the time. Um, and yeah, I just think like when I'm looking back at it now, like the model had changed. Like the
Hmm.
model had changed. Like that was clear to see. Um, And I don't think that, I think people coming into the building, there was a lot of skepticism from within the group. Um, and like, we were like, Jesus, like, we're signing a lot of kids there. Like, I remember at the training ground when Callum Doyle signed and he turned up. We were all training. He turned up and he was like, he had like an entourage with him. Um, but it turns out that obviously from speaking to him and knowing him, he's obviously got his dad, and then he's got like 7 or 8 brothers. Like he's got a crazy big family. So anyway, he's got his couple of his brothers with him. He's got his agent, and I think someone from Man City, like maybe the loans manager or something like that. So he wasn't like being big time or anything like that. But like we're looking over there, and like you say, he looks about 11. So
Yeah, you looks like a kid.
we're all training, and he's walking over. He's got like his big arms. We're thinking, who the fuck is this guy here? Like who brings an entourage? Like we're here to do a job. We're not in the Premier League. Like we're trying to get to the Championship. Like this is real graft. This like we're not. we're not here to. All right, it might be a nice training ground and whatnot, and you might be getting paid well, but like we're grafting now. Like the season's about to start and all this. Right? Anyway, he didn't come over and say hello to anyone, not because he didn't, but like we were still training, and then they went off. Anyway, next day he comes in and he trains, and he hasn't spoke to anyone because he's a kid, like 17. And he trains with us, and he got the ball off the keeper and he ran the full length of the pitch, like the full, like running around people, the full length of the pitch. Everyone was like, "What the fuck? Like this is mental!" Like, and then like he's obviously like not as fit as he needs to be, so like he can't get back, and we're all like, "Oh right, now we see it." Because like if he was like a full blown athlete, he wouldn't have been near us. He would have been playing for Man City. Do you know what I mean? And then I played with him. I don't know how many games I played with him. I played a lot of games with him, maybe 30 games with him. He was brilliant. He was brilliant. One of the best players I've played with. Just like confidence. I felt like we had a good relationship. Like I used to kind of say to him, like, yeah, it's weird. Like I used to give him the ball and be like, find a pass because I knew that he could. I've never played with anyone like that before. Like, um, he was just so good. He could step in. Um, he could play a diag. He could play that channel ball. Could find the ball into the midfielder between the lines. He could dribble with it. He just ticked so many boxes. And then like I remember like the first time he told me he was 17, I was like, no chance. Like no chance. And then like we'd be having conversations with him and stuff like that, like during the season when you sat on the bus and stuff like that, and he was just like he had no idea about anything. And we all thought it's because he's stupid or whatever. Like, you know how you're always getting onto each other like lads. And it's not. It's just because he's flipping 10 years younger than you. Do you know what I mean? It's just like but yeah, like lovely kid, brilliant, lovely kid, brilliant footballer. Yeah, I've not got a bad word to say about Callum Doyle. Great lad. And he's been great. He's been great ever since, you know. So and I think that's down to Sunderland probably given the opportunity. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what went on, but how many other clubs would have given him that opportunity, you know? So I'm sure he's pretty thankful. I know he loved his time up there. That's for sure. But yeah, the recruitment, I think the model had changed, so they were always in the back of their mind thinking about selling people. Um, and yeah, I know that they got a head of recruitment in and things like that. Lee Johnson was big on his recruitment as well. I mean, Dennis was like unbelievable as well. Like Dennis was so good. Uh, he had one bad game when I played with him, and that was Sheffield Wednesday away.
Drop you 3-0.
Sheffield Wednesday away. Yeah, he had a bad game that day. They put that Patterson on him. Dennis was a kid then, you know. Like they put that Patterson on him. They hit a dive onto Dennis like every time. He just had a real tough day. But like Dennis is one of them that you look at and you're like, oh, he's a left back. Like if you saw him walk down the street, you'd be like, oh, he's a left back. Like it just looks like a left back. He's built like a left back. He's just yeah, and another like quiet. He's a quiet boy, but just like really really nice kid. Again, someone else I wouldn't have had anything bad to say about. And I think a lot of that is down to like Lee Johnson because he would do his homework. Like it's easy to sign footballers.
Hmm.
It's hard to sign good people. And I think that was the difference that season. We had a lot of good people. Ross Stewart was another one, like just like the nicest guy ever. You know what I mean? Like to be honest with you, Ross would probably be better off being 25% less nice. If he had a 25% horrible in him than he's got, he would probably be even better, you know. Um, but yeah, no, great player. Um, and yeah, that's not taken away from people that we lost because we did lose some good players who were good in the dressing room, like Max Power. Like I know for sure he regrets the celebrations that they done in that game when they went 1-0 up.
Mm.
But I know that was a loss to us. I remember when he was leaving and like kind of he was saying bye in the group chat, and we were all a bit like, shit, like it's not great to lose him, you know. So yeah, that was difficult. Obviously, Charlie had scored a load of goals.
31. It's so weird to think
Yeah,
back to that because Ross Stewart was so. It's funny you talked about goals before and how we lost the goals in that first season. And I think you can talk about your Serkins and Patrick Roberts, which came in shortly after you left, and those players that are still part of the squad, and that changed the model, which definitely had. I mean, you can't deny how much of an impact that's had. But one
Patrick
thing
signed
we
out of a
had.
window, didn't he? Because Patrick was there when I was there for a period.
Couple of days, I think. I think because we've
Is that what
just,
it was? Yeah,
I believe we've been promoted to the Premier League. Actually, had to pay a fee for him, which is 2 mil.
yeah, yeah.
Been worth it, I
But like
guess.
that,
But
but like that would have the Man City ones for sure were down to Lee Johnson. You know,
he's
like
back there now,
that's
isn't he? Sort of like with the
yeah,
City group, isn't he?
that's his connection. You know, so I don't know. It's just I don't know.
It's funny with Lee
Uh,
Johnson because I'll openly admit I was never a fan, but that's because
no, no, no. I know loads of people like that. I've played again. I played with boys, and I know boys from Bristol City who I speak to, and like they can't abide him.
do you think he's quite Marmite?
Yeah, 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 he is. He is. Sometimes I'll be speaking to someone and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you were Lee Johnson. What did you think?" And I'll say, "I really liked him," and they'll be like, "Really?" Like, because they think like they know my personality, they know his personality. But yeah, I just thought his system of playing, his training. Don't get me wrong, he had his niches, um, but like treating footballers like humans um, is is a is a pretty good commodity to have in my book anyway. And you'd be amazed how many people work in football and they don't have that.
Do you
They don't
think
have
that
that.
he doesn't get? Because when I look back to, if you said to me, like, if you questioned me, where did Sunderland begin to like kick on? I would go back to that Bolton game, the few games afterwards, and then Alex Neil coming in and kind of cutting the shit. As well, the way we'd gone from the Sharks worry about Monday up until Alex Neil, which was like really like the opposite. I can't even think of the quote that he said, but it was very, very opposite. And to me, that was quite refreshing. But do you think, like, to maybe challenge my own perception of Lee Johnson, that maybe Lee Johnson deserves more credit for starting the process of where Sunderland are now in terms of what he started putting into place with Speakman and KLD and stuff like that?
I don't think where they are now. I think that would be a bit too far of a compliment as such. I think there's a lot of things that have gone on since then. But for sure, that season, like I don't know where were we in the league when he got the sack, second or third,
Fourth, I think.
second,
Third or fourth, something like that. I think we just dropped
something
out the
like that.
automatics.
Yeah, so I don't know. Find me another club that's done that. But I think as well, like it was a huge risk from the football club, huge risk, the biggest risk. And they'll sit there now. One man in particular will sit there now and say, "Yeah, masterstroke." But it's a masterstroke because he's got hindsight, you know. And that's it. And look, Lee Johnson knows how a football club should be run. Um, and I think he proved that at Bristol City, how he moved that club on and things like that. And then when you look at kind of what was going on, we look at what was going on at the football club in the background. It was counterproductive to have Lee Johnson. And in that meeting on that last day, I think we all knew that, but they didn't want to admit it. It was plain to see. Um, Too many cooks spoil the broth, and no one likes an opinion when you don't want opinions. Um, so yeah, but being able to do what it is that you want to do without anyone having an opinion or kind of giving an opinion has been good if you can get it to work. Um, and it got them to a certain place. But now it's gone kind of the other way. It looks like to me, and I've got no inside information. It looks like to me it's gone back to the Lee Johnson model of the manager now seems to be pretty in charge at the whole football club. is the vibe I get. I'm sure if you ask the football club, they would say, no, no, no. He's a first team coach, not a manager. But it certainly looks the other way, considering if you go through the squad, the amount of players he's worked with previously. Seems a bit strange that they've got an algorithm that would find a player and coincidentally had worked with the manager previously. But yeah, I think there's a lot of players in that current squad who've got a lot to thank Lee Johnson for. But it's been a long time since Lee has left, so they've done a lot of work themselves. So yeah, I think that the boys will look back when they finish playing and be like, that was a good period of time with Lee Johnson, and I kicked on from there. But it isn't certainly where the club is now. It shouldn't be put down to Lee Johnson. That's what the club have done, done like pretty much over the last kind of 2 seasons for sure.
I've got three more for you, quick fire ones as well. But hindsight is a great thing. We've talked about it an awful lot. And like looking back, I'm not going to lie to you, I actually find it quite funny. And we talked before about the thing that you hated hearing, the typical Sunderland thing, but this was typical Sunderland. In one of your final games for the club, Chris Maguire comes back and scores a hat-trick, does what he does to Lee Johnson, doesn't go to celebrate it first and then apologise to the fans and then celebrates in front of Lee Johnson. It was one of those, now sorry for saying it, Tom, but typical Sunderland things that happened
Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
You played with Chris for most of your time at Sunderland. How
Yeah,
bizarre
yeah.
was the situation? Did you speak to Chris afterwards and what did you make of it?
It was just so the writing was on the wall. It was so obvious it was going to happen.
Yeah,
It was just like it was just like if he doesn't score, that would be amazing because it will shut him up. He can't say anything. There's nothing to say. But then, like the goals that and as well the goals he scored were really, really poor. Like really poor. Like not on his behalf. I mean on our
yeah, yeah.
behalf. And then it's just like you guys say, such a Sunderland thing. We were just like in the dressing room. That's just a Chris Maguire thing.
Yeah.
Like we've spoken about already in this conversation. Chris scored the goal at Portsmouth. Like he just scored important goals,
Mm.
and like there was a thing with Chris, like talented footballer, but like he would play a game and be rubbish. Second game be rubbish. Third game be rubbish. We're training on Friday before the fourth game, and everyone's thinking, "Geez, like Chris isn't going to play here." The manager's probably thinking, I'm going to give him the first half because you never know. Gives him the first half, he scores after 20 minutes and he'll play another 4 games now. Like he had a knack of scoring at important times. And he scored some important goals for us,
Yeah,
some really
really.
important goals for us. And like the crowd loved him as well, didn't they? He was a bit of a showman, wasn't he?
Yes.
And like the thing with Lee Johnson, like Lee Johnson didn't like Chris. Chris didn't like Lee Johnson. But it wasn't personal. It was a footballer and a manager. Like Lee Johnson thought that he had a better player than Chris Maguire. Chris Maguire thought he was better than the player that Lee Johnson thought was better. So yeah, just very very strange old situation. Like just you guys say like such a Sunderland things happen, but I just say and we say as the lads who were in that dressing room at the time, such a Chris Maguire thing, you know. So yeah. I mean, yeah, tough. That was a tough look.
I burst out laughing when he put the third in because it was just such a like, oh, of course. And then
Yeah,
he
yeah,
kind
of
of
course. Yeah,
apologized to the walker end, like sorry, and it's like, yeah, you've done it now, though, mate. You've done it
yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you could
yeah,
take that back, that would be great because that's really affecting the automatic promotion hope. Cheers,
yeah.
Chris. Final question then. I know what the answer would be if I said who's the best player you played with during your time with Sunderland, so I'm going to change it a bit. But who's the most underrated player you played with during your time with Sunderland that you don't think really got the credit that maybe deserved?
Oh, geez, there's a few.
I'll
Like
give you.
one that, like, there's one that is easy to say now, but
Mm,
like when he turned up, we were all just like, this kid is a freak. Like, like ridiculously quick, unbelievable first touch. Like this way he moved the ball when he was running with it, the power he had when he was running with the ball, the height he used to jump, how hard he used to shoot. Anton Semenyo, like
Oh God, aye, Jesus.
just like, and didn't honestly did not kick a ball, didn't kick a ball, didn't kick a ball, and he was like the best in training for I don't know 6 weeks. He was a freak. It was like he was like I don't know, I don't know. It was
Just
like they
worked out, and
made him out of something different, you know. Um, yeah, it's no surprise where he is now. Like, and he's doing things to. He played against Bristol City in the game when I think we got to the other Papa John's final. I
Bristol
think he played
Rovers.
in that Bristol Rovers, sorry. And he ran them ragged. He was running past people, and they were just like, he was like, yeah, he was just so strong and that, and he
I
just
forgot he
didn't
even
play.
played for us. Like I
Yeah,
was thinking, who are
exactly.
you talking
Do
about?
you know?
Like,
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like people forget that, and that's one like that probably the dressing room would say because people didn't get to see him. He was never allowed to play on the field, Parkinson. Um, and then going back to like the most underrated, it's a tough one, you know, because there is a lot. There is a lot of boys. I think at Sunderland, there's a lot of players who, if you were to do like a ranking system for like who's been good this season in the dressing room, it would be very different to if you were to give it to the fans.
hmm
Because the fans at Sunderland, they tend to build a connection with individuals like within the team, whether it's important goals, and I get that. Um, but yeah, no, it was always very different to what the fans thought of was. I've got to be honest with you, Lyndon Gooch always tended to get a bit of heat, and he was just like a good servant. You know, like he played out of position, he worked his bollocks off. He was just a grafter. You know, like scored some important goals as well. Um, kind of like being local, kind of sort
Nah,
of.
he's
Yeah,
local. I class him as
yeah,
local.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was great. It's difficult for underrated because so many that I would say now are so good. I mean, like Dan Neil, I don't know how underrated he was, but he was so good as well. Like even as a kid, like really was as a kid. But yeah, it's difficult to put my finger on a genuinely like underrated player. Um, I just think that kind of when you play with a team and so many teams that I played with, 3 or 4 teams, there's certain players who like you can't function like without,
hmm
do you know? And they're not necessarily loved by everyone. I thought George leaving and us being so poor went hand in hand. Like that was plain to see. So I think that is a mark of how good a player is, because like we couldn't replace him. You
To the
know,
championship career as well, when you think about it. I mean,
exactly right, exactly right. So yeah, difficult. I've not really got an answer for you really, but like there's there's a few players I've said there who are
Semenyo's a
kind
pretty
of
good answer, to be fair.
yeah, yeah.
He's
He's
not
done
doing
all
too
right,
bad.
hasn't he?
Yeah,
No,
he's doing all right.
exactly right, exactly right.
But on Tom, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that, mate. I hope you did as well, mate.
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much for your time.